Her voice reached me before I saw her face. Clear. Confident. Coated in that polished charm I knew too well. I'd like to start by introducing you to a game changer in wearable tech, something that will redefine how we think about personal security in public spaces. I froze in the doorway. There she was, standing beneath the soft spotlight of the pitch room stage, blazer crisp, hair perfectly done, gesturing toward the screen behind her where a sleek render rotated slowly. A silver wearable band, minimalist, beautiful, mine. The air in the room shifted. My lungs stalled. It was the exact design I'd sketched a year ago. The same biometric response system. The same emergency trigger UI I'd coded into my prototype at 3 a.m. during a blackout. Now it was up there, being presented as hers. And she had no idea who was sitting in the back row of the investors panel, me. Marisol. My cousin. My throat went dry, but my fingers curled around the folder in my lap, nails biting paper. It was happening. The betrayal I hadn't been able to fully name until now. This was no coincidence. She hadn't stumbled on my work. She had stolen it. Perfectly, surgically, like a professional thief cutting through glass. And now she was pitching it to a room full of VCs, and to me. I leaned forward slowly, staring at her with cold calculation and thought. Let's see how well you pitch when your judge is the person you stole from. I stayed perfectly still as the lights dimmed around the presentation screen. The large LED display cast pale blue light across the room, flickering with every animation in Marisol's slide deck. I should have been breathing fire. Instead, I watched, detached, eerily calm, as my cousin paraded my brainchild like a trophy she'd earned through grit and vision. She spoke like a visionary. Every line hit its mark. She even mimicked the cadence I used during mock pitches to myself in the mirror. The room nodded in approval. One investor leaned forward, eyebrows raised in that familiar investor gleam, interested, hooked. My stomach twisted. I didn't flinch. I couldn't. The moment I made myself visible, gave any indication that I recognized her, I would lose the one advantage I had left. She didn't know I was here. The pitch ended. A modest round of applause. Polite, not explosive, but promising. Then came the Q&A. I raised my hand. Marisol looked at me and smiled that same warm, calculated smile she used on dates and strangers. She didn't recognize me, not yet. The lighting was low. My hair was pinned back. Glasses on. Maybe the years since we'd last seen each other in person had helped cloak me. I kept my voice level. You mentioned predictive response triggers in emergency scenarios. Can you walk us through the exact mechanism? Particularly the biometric activation. She hesitated. Only for half a beat, but I caught it. A crack in the polished glass. Well, she said, the wearable continuously monitors pulse, temperature, and sweat composition to detect panic spikes. We've trained the algorithm on thousands of data points to identify high-threat scenarios and send instant alerts to emergency contacts and local law enforcement. It was word for word from my spec sheet. I felt cold down to my bones. And the data training set, I asked calmly, where did you obtain it? Her eyes narrowed slightly. She smiled again, but I saw it, the flicker of recognition, like a whisper brushing past her subconscious. Her lips twitched. Something about my voice had struck a chord. She answered vaguely. Proprietary internal sources. It's part of our edge. Bullshit. I had curated that training set from publicly available panic response case studies, hard-coded with metadata from trauma response trials I'd manually annotated over months. No one else had it. Unless they'd been inside my files. I let her finish her answers. The rest of the panel thanked her, nodding appreciatively. She left the stage, and the room hummed with energy. I could feel it. Some were impressed. Others cautious. But the idea had made impact. I waited. Then, 15 minutes later, I slipped out a side exit and made my way through the quiet hall toward the VIP lounge, badge still hanging around my neck. I had hacked this whole setup, used my network to get placed as a surprise panelist last minute. No one questioned it. Investors rotated all the time. And I had the credentials to back it up. Marisol hadn't even blinked. But I hadn't come here for a confrontation, not yet. I walked into the lounge and pulled out my phone. Opened the local server logs. My silent trap had worked. During the presentation, I deployed a passive scanner to ping every device on the local network. Her phone was online. And guess what it was quietly doing? Accessing a cloned folder on a cloud drive titled @_safety_prototype_vfinal. Aurora Tech. I forwarded the IP logs to myself. Then I opened the app I'd built just days ago. A kill switch. One button and the entire clone would self-corrupt, activating a silent tracker on every access point that had touched it. I hesitated. Not yet. Let her float. Let her believe she's in the clear. Let her land a meeting. Let her raise capital. Let her crash. 2 years earlier, I had started building the prototype that would one day be known as the Pulse Line. It wasn't about profit. It was about safety, real-time, responsive safety for vulnerable people in unpredictable environments. My own trauma had seeded the idea, a walk home that turned wrong, a scream no one heard, and the icy realization that you can't always rely on others to protect you. I wanted to build something proactive. The first prototype was crude. A hacked Fitbit board. Wires that snagged on sleeves. But it worked. Barely. I refined it over months, sleepless nights, dwindling savings, a few code breaks that made me weep when they finally ran clean. I didn't tell anyone. Not even Marisol. We had grown apart by then. She was off chasing brand deals, startup clout, clinging to whatever idea seemed hot that month. But somehow she found out. Maybe she saw a diagram in my old notebook when she crashed at my place that one night. Maybe she snooped. Maybe she was watching me longer than I thought. By the time I had a functioning version and was preparing for seed round pitches, she'd gone dark. Then resurfaced last month, all smiles and drinks and questions. I should have known. Now she was walking around in my skin, pitching my ideas, shaping my narrative to fit her face. But this wasn't over. It was just the first move. The day after the pitch, I woke to silence, no messages, no alerts, no calls. Just a low hum in my chest like a warning siren in reverse, telling me to stay sharp. I brewed a pot of bitter black coffee, barely tasted it, then sat cross-legged on my hardwood floor with my laptop open. No distractions. Just mission focus. I had a list now, things to uncover, things to trace. The betrayal wasn't just personal anymore. It was organized. Too slick. Too precise. Marisol wasn't smart enough to pull this off alone. First, I ran diagnostics on the ping logs from yesterday's passive scan. Her device, an iPhone 13 Pro, had been quietly syncing a folder to a shared G drive under the account alias, dev@pantheonlabs.io. Pantheon Labs. I paused. That wasn't a shell startup name. That was real. A San Francisco-based incubator with shady funding routes and a reputation for launching flashy, controversial AI and wearable tech. I'd seen them in tech news circles. Always circling hot ideas like vultures, snatching up founders drowning in debt, rebranding their work, cutting them out. I dug deeper. Pantheon Labs had filed a provisional patent 2 weeks ago for pulse-reactive biometric wearables, filed by Marisol K. Rivera. But the technology they listed in the patent write-up? Mine, down to the data array structure and unique fail-safe sequence I had buried in my firmware. They hadn't even bothered to rename the core function, EVC_triggercore_V3. My initials, left like a signature I forgot to erase. I sat back, eyes burning. She hadn't just stolen my idea. She had gone public with it. Filed it. Claimed it. Which meant by now it was crawling through the patent approval pipeline, possibly being reviewed by IP lawyers, picked over by Pantheon's legal team. If I waited too long, I'd be the one accused of infringement. No, I needed leverage. Not just proof. A reversal. So I dug. Hard. I accessed a mirror of her Pantheon Labs email. Don't ask how, just know I'd been preparing for this possibility for months. What I found nearly knocked the wind out of me. An email, sent 1 week before the pitch. From mk.rivera@pantheonlabs.io to sloan@pantheonlabs.io. Subject, Project Ember, integration timeline. We've already got 90% of the core code base operational. Evelyn's original source files were cleaner than expected. She was meticulous, actually kind of admirable. If we get the secondary chip ready, we can pitch to Horizon Group by November. Let's keep her in the dark a little longer. She's brilliant, but slow to act. She won't know until we're too far ahead to stop. I froze. Embedded. That was the original project codename I had buried in a sandbox folder. Hidden. How the hell did they get in? That's when I remembered. 6 months ago. My GitHub had a brief breach, only for seconds, supposedly flagged and shut down before anything was compromised. I thought nothing of it. But someone had cloned my repo. And I never changed the sandbox folder's encryption key. I was bleeding from wounds I didn't know I had. By late afternoon, I was downtown, parked outside the sleek office of Pantheon Labs in my black hooded jacket and tinted glasses, watching the revolving door spin. I wasn't planning on storming the gates. I needed a name. A face. Something human I could pin this on besides Marisol. And that's when I saw him. Hayden Sloan, Pantheon CTO, walking out of the building with Marisol at his side. Tall, lean, with the dead eyes of someone who never hears no. They were laughing. Touching arms. She wore the kind of grin that said she thought she owned the city. I followed. They grabbed drinks at a rooftop bar on 6th. I sat a few stools down from them, out of view, listening in through a directional mic rigged into my earbuds. Hayden was cocky. Talking fast. Mentioning Horizon Group, the VC titan known for snapping up early-stage AI wearable ventures. If they were meeting with Horizon, it meant they were accelerating. Going big. Moving fast. Marisol mentioned something about a backup demo unit and 2 press invites for November 30th. That date burned into my brain. That was the day I had marked for my own launch. It hit me like a slap. She had mirrored my entire roadmap. Every key milestone. Every pitch meeting. She was anticipating me. Beating me to every punch. Unless I flipped the script. Back at home, I loaded the kill switch again. One click would destroy her current clone. But that would only slow her down. No, I had something better. Buried in the source code of the prototype was a ghost line of code I wrote during a sleepless night in April. A dormant command, Ghostlock version 1.3. A time-triggered softlock protocol that, when enabled, would force the device into a state of critical diagnostic. Non-functional, with no ability to demo unless the correct biometric key was entered. My key. I sent the command. It would activate at exactly 2 p.m. on November 30th. Right in the middle of her Horizon Group demo. But it would look like a glitch. An internal bug. Unless someone dug deeper and found my name buried in the activation file. A digital signature that would turn her pitch into a confession. I smiled for the first time in days. Let her build. Let her promote. Let her bask. I would let the house of cards collapse publicly. But then, an email landed in my inbox. From unknown sender at protonmail.com. Subject, urgent, she's not working alone. Evelyn. I worked with Marisol at Pantheon. You're in danger. This goes deeper than you think. If you want proof, meet me tomorrow night. 9:30 p.m. Location, Dock 47, Terminal West. Bring no one. No tech. Just your mind. No signature. Just those words. My screen flickered. Dock 47. I stared at the message, a knot forming in my chest. Who the hell was this? And what did they mean by danger? The wind at Dock 47 carried a stink of brine and rust, the kind that clung to your skin and refused to let go. I stepped out of the rideshare with my phone powered down and battery removed. Paranoid? Maybe. But paranoia was survival now. Terminal West was dead silent at night, save for the distant echo of container cranes shifting in the darkness like sleeping giants. This wasn't the kind of place you came for conversation. This was where bodies were dumped in the 80s. Where you disappeared if you asked the wrong questions. Exactly the kind of place where truths buried by giants were sometimes exhumed. I walked slowly down the uneven concrete, my boots crunching on gravel. My breath hung in the cold air. No one in sight. Then, from the shadows of a shipping container, a figure emerged, slim, hooded, cautious. Hands visible. A woman, maybe mid-30s. Sharp eyes. Wary. You're Evelyn, she said. It wasn't a question. I am, I replied. And you are? She ignored the question. You want to bring down Marisol. But you need to know what she's really part of. I know enough. She stole my work. She's pitching it as hers, and now she's in bed with Pantheon Labs. The woman stepped closer, face partly lit by the yellow wash of a distant halogen floodlight. Pantheon is just the storefront. You're not thinking big enough. This isn't just tech theft, Evelyn. It's repurposing. What do you mean? She pulled out a small black case from her coat pocket and opened it. Inside, a microchip the size of a fingernail. This isn't your prototype, but it's based on your architecture. And it's not for safety alerts or personal defense anymore. She flipped open a tablet and tapped the screen. A video played. Grainy security footage. A man walking through a crowded subway station. Suddenly, he collapsed, seizing. People screamed. His hand trembled on his wrist. He wore a familiar-looking band. My band. The footage zoomed. I saw the logo, a stylized phoenix. Pantheon. What is this? It's a field test. They've weaponized the biometric triggers, she said flatly. Instead of detecting a panic state and alerting contacts, they've rewritten the firmware to induce one, send people into shock, panic, collapse. Think of it like remote control fear. Panic as a payload. I felt my knees weaken. No, that's not what it was designed to. I know, she said, softer now. You built something good. They hijacked it. Marisol gave them access. And in return, they gave her the illusion of power. But she's not leading this. She's a puppet. The wind howled through the containers, cold slicing past my jacket. I was silent for a long time. I have code backups, I said finally. I have logs. IP traces. Deployment data. I even have a kill switch embedded in her demo unit. The woman nodded. Good. But you need more than proof now. You need reach. The only way to expose this is through the right channels, ones that won't be bought off by Pantheon's lawyers. Then help me, I said. Give me names. She paused. There's a reporter. Laura Esposito. Investigative tech journalist. Been trying to crack Pantheon for years. If you get her the data, she'll blow it open. I memorized the name. The woman turned to leave, but paused. You should know Marisol didn't find you by accident. I narrowed my eyes. What? She was told to target you. Specifically. Because you were close to something Pantheon couldn't replicate. They couldn't rebuild your emotional response algorithms. They needed you. Or your code. Who told her? She looked at me, pity in her eyes. You ever hear the name Juno Crane? Every muscle in my body went still. Juno Crane. A former mentor. My professor at MIT. The one who told me to pursue this idea. The one who encouraged me to keep everything local, not patent early. The one I trusted. She sold them the theory papers, the woman said. 6 figures. Just the white papers alone. And just like that, a second betrayal detonated in my chest. Back home, I sat in darkness. No music. No light. Just me and the glow of a single monitor. I opened the archive. Scanned for the old file headers. There it was Juno_theory_v3.pdf, a paper I co-wrote under her supervision. Unpublished. Confidential. And yet, the document properties told the truth. Last opened by Crane at pantheonlabs.io. I stared until the words blurred. This wasn't about Marisol anymore. It never was. She was the visible thief. But the real architect of my downfall had been there from the start. Planting ideas. Steering me away from legal protections. Keeping me blind while others read my blueprint like scripture. And now they were preparing to release a version of my creation, twisted into a weapon on a mass scale. November 30th was no longer a product launch. It was the date I went to war. 2 days before November 30th, I sat in the back seat of a rideshare crossing the Golden Gate Bridge, the San Francisco skyline gleaming under an overcast morning. On the seat beside me was a hard case lined with backup drives, analog notes, and the kind of documentation that could sink a corporation. Or, if handled wrong, sink me. Laura Esposito agreed to meet, cautiously. We'd spoken only once by encrypted voice call. I gave her no names, only enough breadcrumbs to awaken her journalistic instincts. "Show me the full scope," she had said. "If it's as big as you say, I'll be your sword and shield." The meeting was set in an unlikely place, a dive bar in Chinatown, closed for renovations, owned by her brother. No surveillance. No patrons. Just us, the smell of sawdust, and tension you could cut with a knife. She was already there when I arrived, early 40s, short black bob, expression like stone. She said little, just gestured to the far table. I placed the case down and opened it. I began. The prototype theft. The biometric ghost code. The repurposing. The Doc 47 footage. The source trail to Pantheon Labs. The email from Juno Crane. Laura didn't interrupt once. Just took notes, fast and sharp, her eyes occasionally darting to the corners of the room like a hawk scanning for movement. I handed her a printed copy of the internal email from Marisol to Pantheon CTO. When she read the line, "Evelyn's files were cleaner than expected," her jaw tightened. "You've got a kill switch?" she asked. "Yes. It activates the moment she begins her demo for Horizon Group. It'll crash the prototype. Trigger a failsafe screen with my biometric signature embedded in the error log." Laura nodded slowly. "You understand what happens next, right?" "What do you mean?" She leaned forward, voice low. "If you pull this off publicly, they'll come after you. Not just Pantheon. They're partners. They're lawyers. You're about to burn the facade off a billion-dollar lie. Do you have the stomach for that?" I didn't blink. "I'm not here to be safe. I'm here to be true." She stared at me for a long moment, then reached into her coat and slid across a press pass. Silicon Ascent 2025, Emergent Tech Summit. Special guest access, keynote hall. "I embedded myself as a freelance consultant for the summit months ago," she said. "I'll be covering the keynote. You'll be there." Pantheon's unveiling their new wearable platform as the closing act. That's where you kill it. Live. And I'll be front row with a camera crew. I picked up the badge. Felt its weight. This was it. The battlefield. The day before the summit, I received a text from an unknown number. "She knows. Pull back. Or she will. Jay." I didn't respond. My fingers trembled. I recognized the signature. Juno Crane. I'd wondered when she'd show her hand. But the next text came only seconds later. "You were never meant to be a founder, Evelyn. You were meant to be a foundation. Don't mistake your gift for ownership." I stared at the message, my hands curling into fists. She still saw me as a vessel. A lab experiment that accidentally became conscious. Rage burned through my nerves like electricity. I opened a private chat server and reconnected with the whistleblower from Doc 47. "They know. Marisol's suspicious. Can you plant a secondary ghost script to activate early if she runs a local demo?" "Already done," she replied. "One more thing," I typed. "If this backfires, I need a full dump of their dev server. Everything. IP theft, source files, financials. The works. If you go down, they go with you." Good. November 30th, the summit. The Emergent Tech Summit pulsed with energy. Massive LED banners hung from the glass-paneled ceiling, casting blue light across the marble floor. Dozens of startup booths littered the space. I moved through it all like a ghost, invisible behind my press badge and carefully neutral outfit. Marisol's face was everywhere. Projected on banners. Playing on promo screens. Her voice echoed through hallway speakers. "We're here to make the world safer. One heartbeat at a time." I felt sick. But I waited. Watching. Observing. And then, just before the keynote, something unexpected happened. Marisol pulled out the prototype on the private stage for a pre-demo test, a quick flex for Horizon Group's CTO, who had arrived early. She smiled. Pressed the button. Nothing happened. Then the prototype screen glitched, jerked, turned black. An error screen blinked into life. Error code, ghostlock_v1.3. Biometric mismatch, owner signature, e.cruz_187. Unauthorized user detected. She froze. Eyes wide. Her jaw slackened. The CTO leaned forward. "What is that?" She didn't answer. The media rep nearby stepped closer. Is this part of the demo? Marisol spun around, panic rising. She gripped the device, tried to reboot it, but the screen wouldn't change. The error remained. I watched it all from the back row, heart thundering in sync with hers. She turned toward the audience, and our eyes met. Recognition slammed into her like a wave. Her lips moved, Evelyn. And then it all unraveled. Security, PR agents, tech leads, all buzzing around her like hornets disturbed. The CTO demanded to know what the hell was going on. An investor from Horizon stormed off. And then came Laura. Camera crew rolling. Microphone hot. Marisol Rivera, is it true that the core technology for this product was developed by Evelyn Cruz, your cousin, and stolen under the guise of partnership? Chaos. Shouting. Marisol's voice cracking. I didn't. She was going to abandon it. I was protecting it. Too late. Laura had what she needed. The feed was already being pushed to her network. But then one final twist. A man in a gray suit approached me from behind. Placed a folded paper in my hand. No words. I unfolded it. Evelyn, you've only killed the clone. The real project is still alive. And it's launching next quarter. Let's talk. Or get buried. Juno. She wasn't done. Neither was I. I didn't sleep the night after the summit. Not because I was afraid. Because I was alive. The storm had broken. The expose ran within hours. Startup heist. Aurora Tech founder exposes corporate theft at Live Tech Summit, and it was everywhere. TechCrunch, Wired, even the front page of the New York Times Online. Social media swarmed with reactions. Public opinion turned fast, brutal. Some called Marisol a fraud. Some called her a victim. But everyone knew my name now. Evelyn Cruz. 3 days later, I sat across from her in a glass-walled deposition room, silence thick between us like fog. She looked smaller now. Not in stature, she still wore that power blazer, heels polished, but in presence. Her swagger was gone. Her smile, mechanical. Her eyes, glassy. She wouldn't look at me. Not until I leaned forward and said, "You could have built it with me." She met my eyes, finally. I didn't think I'd get a second chance if I asked. You always had the vision. I had the spotlight. I thought maybe, if I brought it to light first, I could finally matter. You mattered, I said, my voice low. Until you made me your stepping stone. Her mouth opened like she wanted to argue. Then closed. She said nothing more. The door opened. A lawyer stepped in, whispered something in her ear. Her face paled. They were cutting her loose. Pantheon had activated full damage control mode. They scrubbed her from their site. Replaced all mentions of Rivera Technologies with generic placeholders. She was no longer useful. She was a liability. But I wasn't interested in watching her fall. I had bigger prey. That night, a car pulled up outside my apartment. Black. Tinted. The kind that never has a license plate you can trace. I knew who it was before the door opened. Juno Crane. Same crisp suit. Same cold, calculating eyes. But this time, she didn't play the mentor. You won the first round, she said, standing in my hallway like she belonged there. Very theatrical. Very public. But that product you killed? That was a prototype for investors. The real application, the real engine, isn't wearable. It's internal. My blood turned to ice. What are you talking about? Neural adaptive implants, she said coolly. Based on your emotion mapping protocols. The safety feature you developed? Imagine it detecting, not panic, but loyalty. Rage. Willingness. Imagine adapting a soldier's adrenaline output before they pull a trigger. Behavioral influence before action. You're making soldiers? We're making predictability. For defense. For policing. For control. No, I said, stepping back. You're making slaves. She didn't flinch. We're giving structure to chaos. My fists clenched. You took everything from me. And now you want me to partner with you. Juno smiled. I'm offering you your empire back. Your design. But this time, you lead. It was poison wrapped in silk. Power, if I just agreed to look away from the rot inside it. I stared at her for a long moment. Then I said, "You built your house on stolen code. I'm going to burn it to the ground." The next morning, I went nuclear. With Lara's help, we leaked the internal roadmap Juno thought was hidden, the neural interface specs, the leaked Pentagon emails, even the investor contracts signed off under dummy shell core. It took 24 hours to reach Capitol Hill. Within days, federal inquiries launched. The stock crashed. The first class action lawsuit hit within the week. And through it all, I rebuilt. Not Aurora Tech. Something new. I called it Sentinel Origin. Open source. Transparent. Community-owned. A new blueprint for ethical biometric tech, accountable, secure, decentralized. Built with victims, survivors, medics, teachers. People who actually needed what I was trying to build from the beginning. I didn't chase investors. They came to me. The right ones this time. The final twist? Marisol sent me a letter. No apology. Just a sketch. A new wearable. An idea. She'd started again. Small. Quiet. Alone. I looked at it for a long time. And tucked it away. Maybe someday, we'd talk again. Maybe not. But me? I was done building for other people's empires. Now, I built for the ones who'd never had a voice. And I made sure mine was never stolen again.